What's going on, guys? This is Michael Anthony Photography. Thank you for checking out my article in This Much Shutter magazine. This month, guys, we're talking all about reception lighting, and I know this is a subject that a lot of people are a little bit uneasy with when they first come into wedding photography, and that's understandable because typically when we get to receptions, the lighting is dark. Sometimes it's mixed with warm light, and sometimes you're going to have a combination of incandescent light and daylight, which could just be a disaster, right? On top of all that, you'll have DJs that go crazy sometimes with their laser light shows and a lot of other sort of crazy stuff that you have to deal with when you get to a reception. Now, just because the lighting situations are hard doesn't mean that we're not expected to deliver a professional quality product. In fact, it's going to be your use of light in less than ideal circumstances that will help differentiate you when it comes time for the client to choose between you and another photographer in that pre-consultation process. So guys, I am a big believer in being comfortable with the use of off-camera flash. Doesn't mean that you always have to use off-camera flash during the reception, but definitely knowing how to use it and when to use it is going to set you apart from your competition. Now, typically on a dance floor, if I am working with a bride and a groom dancing by themselves or a bride and groom dancing with their parents, I will have a three-light pattern that I go into detail in my article, set up in a triangular format that I can use on it. I can use as I see fit, and I'll be able to turn on and off lights on my remote control flash on my camera. Now, keep in mind that when I am shooting this particular part of the day, the first dance, the parent dances, I will typically turn off the flash that is actually firing from my camera and just use it as a remote. As you guys know, I use a Canon 600EX RT system that allows you to control the flashes remotely from one master flash, and you could set up to different groups and however you need to control your lights, you're able to do that from that flash system. So I'm a big believer in that. I do not use ETTL. I know that is a big question that I get asked a lot. I set all my off-camera flashes to manual. The only time I use ETTL is when I am using my on-camera flash, and that's because I will be moving all around the room, and having to adjust those flashes can be a little bit difficult. Now, typically here, guys, if your lights are set up in a triangular format, the most important thing that's going to determine how these photos look after you get your power and everything dialed in is going to be your shooting angle, okay? If you're shooting into an angle that allows the light to spill onto a wall directly behind the couple, it's not going to look as ideal as if you're able to find a way to light the couple without that light spilling in the walls all around the room. Now, this is going to mean that you're going to have to turn on and off flashes as you're moving around the dance floor and coordinating around your couple, because again, for a first dance, for parent dances, these are photojournalistic moments, okay? The only things that you're going to have control over are where your lights are and your camera angle and position, okay? So being that, all that being said, you have to choose your angle, you have to choose your shots in order to get the perfect balance of photos. Now, not every photo that you guys shoot during the reception is going to be a winner, okay? You're going to have to understand that when you're using off-camera flash, especially when you're starting out, you're going to get some shots that there's shadows on the faces, or they generally don't come out as perfect as you would like them to. That's okay, that'll get better over time, but the main thing that you need to focus on here is getting your moments. That means you need to get all of your safe shots before you start experimenting with a paying client, okay? If you're not familiar with off-camera flash on a reception, do not go and try this your first time with a paying client, okay? Be a second shooter, be a third shooter, experiment a little bit, and when you get comfortable enough to the point where you feel that you can do this with your own clients, get your safe shots first, do what you know best, and then go ahead and experiment and get the creative shots after that. I can't stress this enough, guys, over and over again. People will send us some images and they'll ask us what we think of the reception photos, and if the lighting isn't dialed in, hopefully that's not the only photo that you guys got for your client, right? So make sure you get your safe shots, make sure you get what you need to get, then you can go about experimenting once you feel comfortable with the process, okay? Secondly, if you guys are going to be shooting with a second shooter or a third shooter and they're shooting on your same light systems, I'm going to recommend one of two things. Either the ProPhoto B2 system, these are great for receptions, or the use of battery packs for your speed lights. And the reason for that is because when you guys get your light dialed in, If you have a bunch of people shooting around the dance floor, you're going to be using up power quickly, all right? And on that note, you also want to make sure that your camera settings are going to be conducive to making sure that you guys have best use of your power, right? So that means using a higher ISO, I don't want to say a wider aperture too often because you might misfocus in fast-moving moments. When you get more and more experience, then feel free to get that aperture a little bit wider. But for the most part, you're going to be needing to use a moderately fast shutter speed and a smaller f-stop, somewhere around f4, f5.6, until you feel comfortable. And then that way you'll be able to get a good balance of the ambient light and be able to freeze motion, but that means that you're going to have to sacrifice ISO, which is okay nowadays because most cameras, most of the modern cameras should I say, can basically see in the dark anyway, at least a lot better than they used to be a few years back. Guys, lighting receptions takes practice. It's not something you're going to get overnight. The lighting diagrams that I provided for you guys in my article are going to give you a starting point, but from there you have to understand how light works, otherwise you're not going to get the results that you guys want. It's much like when you see in Facebook groups, people are always asking for photographers to post camera settings. You and I both know it doesn't mean anything unless you know the circumstances that that required you to get to those camera settings. So whenever you're learning anything in photography, guys, ask why before you ask what the technique is. So once you know why you're doing it, then you can learn how to apply the technique. That's all I got for you guys right now. I can't wait to check you out, to write to you guys in the next edition of Shutter Magazine. Thanks a lot.